Hey everyone, welcome. Thank you for coming to join us. Today, our webcast with Allstacks and C Prime is going to be covering doing more with less. How can you scale value stream management in 2023? My name is Eric Rodstein. I'm a solutions engineer at C Prime. And today we're going to cover how you can leverage flow to do more with less. To kick us off, I'd love to start with some introductions with some of the guests who will be joining me on today's session. I'd love to get started with Adam Dahlgren, who's the Senior VP of Product over at Allstacks. Hey.
Hey, Eric. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate you taking the reins to co-host for us today. Thank you to C Prime for supporting us in this awesome topic, pretty timely topic, I think. I'm Adam. I'm here in Austin, Texas, product leader by background, and I've been building Allstacks now for almost 5 years. And this is sort of right down our fairway for conversation over here at Allstacks. This concept of value streams and flow in particular, and really excited to have the discussion. And let's get our other compadre in here too.
Absolutely. Well, without further ado, we also have Matt Whitlisbach from C Prime, who's a solution architect and fellow colleague of mine.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Like Eric said, my name is Matt Whitlisbach. I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I am a solutions architect. Looking forward to the next 45 minutes with everybody.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And really excited to jump right in. I think the foundation for the conversation today, actually, before I jump in, I just want to point out for everybody joining us. There's a comment section. I don't know if it's this side or this side, but we have a comment section. Please feel free to add comments if there's any questions that you have. We'll have a Q&A session at the end, 10, 15, 20 minutes as time allows. But please drop comments in. We'll be able to see them throughout the discussion and can certainly start to pepper some of those in depending on where we are. So I think the launching point for today's conversation, I think the core kind of thesis for what we want to cover is, I think we're all aware over the last 12 to 18 months, the macroeconomic trends have drastically shifted how companies and teams are working today. Availability of capital is getting a little bit more difficult. Companies are getting more cautious with their investments. Teams have less resources to deliver their work, but simultaneously, simultaneously, expectations of leadership, of customers, of the marketplace hasn't changed. The outputs that we're expected to deliver, the features we're expected to deliver hasn't changed at all. And so we're moving into a new space where teams are trying to figure out how do they do more with less. And it's going to require solvings for some inefficiencies in how teams work to deliver product. And so the first question that I have to kind of kickstart things for our panelists is, from the conversations we've had with customers over the last 6 weeks, 8 weeks, quarter, what have we started to see and hear, and how has the mindset shifted with leaders to start to account for this new construct that they're working in?
Yeah, that's a really good setup to the discussion, Eric. So as a solution architect, it's my job to come in and help customers solve their issues. The issues I'm asked to help solve vary greatly from customer to customer, industry to industry, but I do find that I can trace them all back to the ability to control the flow of the work into their organization or lack of control, and a mismatch of the tooling configurations to match their ways of working, which tends to result in this lack of visibility, efficiency, and predictability of their work. Conversations usually start out around visibility. What are my teams working on? How are they progressing? How are they doing? And if we take this common question and ask why until we get to the root cause of the problem, it tends to end up with inefficient work intake and then flow through the system with no ability to visualize what's going on as that work goes through the system. So to make a long story short, I think it comes down to visibility. So visibility around resources, plans, dependencies, and then how do we scale this visibility left and right, up and down in the organization.
Yep.
You know,
I think to dovetail off that, what we've been seeing, and I would argue it's maybe been 6 and approaching 9 months of the conversation starting to shift. The hallmark of it has been for us at Allstacks, the interaction with some of these software executives, business leaders who are saying, you want to know the kind of conversation I'm having now that I just wasn't having for years? It's my CFO came to me and said, holy cow, we've approved a whole lot of budget lines for a bunch of years. Can you just show me what are we getting for that? Can you help me understand our water line? Do we have a comprehensive view of the quality of our software organization? Right? That's new. That's different. Some would argue it's been happening for a long time, but in terms of the scale and maybe the emphasis on that type of conversation, that's pretty different. And so you've got these folks who are now in zero-based budgeting. They're literally doing everything they can to keep their teams intact. And what then do we need to do to actually accomplish all these different commitments and goals that we have to our customers and stakeholders with, at best, the same number of people and often fewer, right? Well, you have to be ruthlessly efficient, and you have to protect the team at all costs, and you have to make really great trade-off choices, and you have to be super focused. Well, that all sounds really nice, but how on earth do you actually do that in an at-scale, technology enterprise, right? Step one, you have to be able to get your hands on these data streams, on these value streams, assess where you are, and then make smart choices and investments really thoughtfully and intentionally, right? So that's the setup. That's the backdrop for why we're here, why we're doing what we're doing, and what you guys at C Prime are helping enable every single day.
Yep. Yeah, I love that context for both of you. And so perhaps something that you ended on there, Adam, around identifying your value streams, right? I think is probably the first step of understanding how work flows through the different teams who are delivering value. So maybe the next topic for us to start to dig a little deeper is starting to help build some definition or common language around what is flow and what does that mean and how does it provide a mindset for understanding where are we facing challenges, where are there inefficiencies, and where are there bottlenecks?
Yeah. In the industry, there's a lot of varying definitions of flow, but the way I've like to view it is, it's a state of mind or productivity where an individual is fully immersed in their work and they're allowed to complete their work in a timely manner and use all their creativity and focus to get that done. And when we look at agile methodologies, agile, scrum at scale, safe, it doesn't really matter what it is. Those methodologies have baked into them principles that allow individuals as well as teams and teams of teams to maximize the efficiency or flow of the work through them. So, with the concept of flow, we can now focus on efficiency and how we can quickly bring ideas in, get them through the system, and then realize value. So, in my experience, over the past couple of years, capturing flow metrics has been very difficult. It's been achievable, but difficult. And usually we're asked to get pinpoint metrics, which on their own are valuable. There's no question about that, but they don't tell us about the entire system. So when we think of flow, we're looking at the entire system from beginning to end. And now we can tell a much greater story that is based on all these pinpoint metrics and make intelligent decisions on how do we get better. So I'll pass it over to you, Adam, and you can talk about how Allstacks can help us out with that.
Yeah, thanks. So, taking a step back, proliferation of data sources and tools and process implementation and team restructuring and ceremonies and all that stuff, right? Things that you guys are helping support day in, day out, lots of different companies. All these different data streams that have been created create pretty significant complexity when it comes to just answering that first question of like, what's the team's day-to-day actually look like, right? So what we've done with Allstacks, we basically think of it as an intelligence platform for value stream, right? And the way that comes together is by piecing project management data, code data, deployment data, right? All these external sources across various different suites and tool sets. So all the big vendors make that data play nice in a consolidated model that lets you then say across my organization holistically, what is on track, what is off track, where are the bottlenecks, like, and show you click, 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 here's an answer, click, 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 here's an answer. Not extra services behind the door, just fingertips, answers, insight immediately. So I'll give you a sense for what we're doing here, and what I'll actually do is just walk you through some of C Prime. Like, we've actually built dashboards with our friends at C Prime to sort of talk about agile maturity models, right? And once you get a couple steps in, that brings you to this concept of flow and what can you actually do to isolate problems, and then we'll ping pong back and forth, Matt, Eric, about, oh, well, when we see this, what do you guys actually end up doing, to coach, train, make change in an organization to then make an improvement on that bottleneck, for instance. So I'll share all that.
Yep. Yeah. As you're pulling up your screen, we're creating some kind of commonality around flow end to end, right? How do we go from idea to customer value, something released, and all of the various steps and all the various teams, and trying to understand where are those breaks, where are those inefficiencies, right? And to your point, Adam, being able to consolidate, aggregate, and visualize from all the disparate systems. And that kind of speaks to what Matt was saying, right? Which is, before we're able to see little pieces of it, and the intention and the value of looking at it all together helps us solve for the bigger inefficiencies.
Yeah. So if you think about it, right, this is in the straight out of sort of the C Prime playbook, like maturity level 1. What do we actually want to do? Well, what is our delivery velocity at the highest level? This is a simple line that's just like, is this thing going up? Are we shipping more, right? What's the nature of the work being delivered? This is being able to very quickly come down and say, like, at the OKR level, where's our focus? At the strategic theme level, what are the things that we're working on? Are we using those consistently? You'll see, like, this is where we're coming in and saying, oh, we're kind of shifting around the way we're thinking about which objectives to use. How focused are we on customer requests versus stories? This is just an orientation around where are we kind of directing effort. Issue type flow, so across the time, what's getting more emphasis, and then where are our different initiatives kind of split among the whole team's attention, and then what is uncategorized. This is very, very high level stuff, but for you guys, if you're coming into an organization and you're saying, like, we need to not jump ahead too far, these are the things you're trying to establish. I think what we find at Allstacks is companies like C Prime really help people get through maturity step 1 and 2. Step 2 gets into really focused on commitments and cycle times on your deliveries, how often we hit our dates, what the time periods are per stage in process for the most important deliverables, right? After you've done these sort of initial benchmarks, you can then really get into something like a flow dashboard where you're saying, I've come to now understand a couple of the sort of key deficiencies that we might have. And now what I need to do is we need to really isolate a couple problem areas and coach in, make some change, do some training via folks like C Prime often, where there's a mindset that needs to maybe shift on the flow topic, and then some focus. And we say, okay, we are going to try, let's just use the data here, right? We're looking at share of cycle time, and we're seeing that this is with to do still in view. So cool thing about Allstacks, like I can just tune this all on the fly, but let's take out to do, and let's just look at where some of these bottlenecks are. Okay, here's a research bottleneck. Do we expect that? Probably okay. Well, all these won't do's, sure is a lot of cycle time being spent across the won't do's. And this is where we actually have the opportunity. I can come in here, I can isolate this data specifically to those won't do's. Like I could come in and say, just give me a sense for only that won't do data. And I could then actually build a chart, drive into it, and see these specific line items that are in the won't do states where Eric and Matt, you guys might then actually use that sitting there with a customer to say, hey, we're looking at all this won't do work. What is the nature of this won't do work that is specifically ballooning our overall team cycle times? What does that look like in terms of an actual engagement, how you help people on the fly doing that? Because I think that's a proxy for how engineering directors and leaders that we work with all the time actually address this problem on the fly as they encounter it.
Yeah, from my perspective, I always look left or look up the process. And if I'm seeing a lot of won't do work, well, is that because we defined it poorly? We defined it with incorrect data at the time. So we start to ask ourselves questions like that. And if, regardless of what the answer is, we need to back our decisions on what we're going to work on and what that work really looks like based on meaningful data, not only from our execution of in the past, but also into the industry as well, so that we can hopefully start to shrink that amount of won't do work, as an example.
So great example. Eric, anything you want to tack onto that?
Yeah, it's a huge proportion of the work here in any one cycle of things that we're not going to work on, right? And it creates an alarm and a siren and a trigger point to have those deeper discussions around, to your point, what was the nature of that work? Why did we spend energy on it? And how did that disrupt other things that we probably should have been working on? And so to Matt's point, it helps us look left and understand the planning cycles, but then also what are the challenges that caused us as we were working through the value stream to say, well, we're still going to spend cycles on that.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's kind of a both sides type of challenge.
And so let's zoom in on that. So to complete that story, if you go and isolate the nature of some of the things that are becoming won't do's from a certain team with certain characteristics, you might even then go in and say, I'm going to add a specific risk in Allstacks that is going to take the characteristics that you've identified of that type of work, the leading indicator to those won't do's, to whatever degree you find them, and actually build a risk right in here that says, this is the let's just say it's a won't do risk, and based on certain characteristics, you might build out a rule that says when you encounter this each time, surface that in Slack, in email, directly to that engineering manager, to the individual who owns the card, and basically prompt them with, hey, we need to take action on this, or it is very likely to become, this bin of wasted time in my cycle time chart that is taking my team out of flow. Like that is how hyper tactical you can get to build those guardrails to keep the team in the zone, happy, protected, right? And not kind of stepping in potholes that we can actually detect.
Yep. The change management piece is so critical, right? And how do we, step one is understanding and isolating where there is waste, right? And the next step is how are you going to create the mechanisms to increase flow, right? And
Right.
remove that waste.
Right.
One question I have for both of you, and I'd love to start to drill into some more of the metrics, and maybe as a guidepost for teams that are newer to the concept of value streams and or flow, what would we say would be the early things or maybe lower hanging fruit perhaps for data benchmarks, metrics to benchmark to start looking at, here's some early wins on increasing flow?
Matt, you start, and then however you answer, I'll use a supporting,
Yeah.
visual to it, or I'll dovetail off of it. So absolutely, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to approach it, because I think it shows basically where we've come from to where we are now. So in the past, it was, let's just go after the simple stuff: lead time, wait time, and maybe some cycle times. Getting more than that consistently, it was really hard. Because, like you said earlier, the tools, they're disparate. They're not necessarily connected very well. They all have different formats of data, and normalizing that was really difficult. So, yeah, I mean, being able to just start simple and start somewhere, and through continuous improvement, we can work ourselves into, all right, now we got three metrics. Can we make a decision on that? Let's bring in a fourth and a fifth. But bringing those in the past consistently and reliably was very difficult. So, yeah, I'm interested to see what you got to say to build on that.
Yeah, and Eric, as you're out there in the wild too, like, is there anything in particular that you love to start with or focus on, or even like something that what's a thing that actually people will say, oh, I think we want to focus on this, that you guys actually say, don't focus on that? What's an example of that?
Oh, don't focus. That's a great question. I might defer to Matt. I think my answer would be based on where the data could be deceptive. And we're getting some sort of false positive, and it's showing us something that might indicate potentially that either we're looking at the wrong thing, or the data isn't, in a way, showing us an outcome. And I don't know, Matt, if you have any specifics on that front.
Yeah. What I run into a lot of times with clients when they come to us, they're like, my problem is a tool. I need a new tool. Well, what's wrong with your existing tool? Is it missing large capabilities that are mission critical to getting your business done? More often than not, we find out, no, that's not the case. We just don't have the right configuration. We don't have the right data or pools of data to get meaningful metrics out of it. So, I usually try to say, hey, why don't we put a little bit of time and effort into maximizing the capabilities of what we have, versus just burning down the house and trying to build a new one thinking it's going to be better.
Yeah, if we want to pull up a metric, maybe if we're thinking flow velocity, we could be overly simplistic and say, show me all the things that we've completed. Is that a good enough metric that shows us what we want? Or do we need something that's more rich than that, that helps us understand that work contextually?
I love it. I love that you said that. And excuse the curveball question from the guy sitting there with the data.
I love it.
Because I was sort of teasing at that, right? What you can end up finding is, I mean, we can look at something like this pull request velocity, right? So and a cool thing, being able to look at the actual code data flow is a really important thing that I think a lot of people don't get the opportunity to do sufficiently. And this is yet again like one where if you can tune the data, if you understand the nuance inside of this big enterprise data across all these different teams, you can get a clear picture where many times they're like, it's jumbled, I don't know if I can tell. And here's an example, right? So let's just say that in here, I want to filter out, this is pull request approval stuff, right? So let's just say, like, I want to take out a state where, like, canceled, right? So we like have the ability on the fly to come in and just take out that data. It'll change the data just as we add in different filters, different time ranges. But what you can actually do is say, like, oh, well, we've just realized that we have a nuance in the data set that we should take certain specific characteristics out of it to get a clearer view of the current state of affairs. And you guys, right, or any of the directors, first line managers and VPs at any of these engineering companies, like they're going to know I've got these different flavors. I've got these special case things that we do that are maybe non-standard that I don't want to bloat my results. I want them to help me know, am I getting better? Am I getting worse? And this will avoid you having the data show incorrectly. And then all you need to do is publish it to your dashboards, propagate that across the organization, start to use that as the current state of affairs, right?
So Adam, I'm putting myself in the shoes of maybe some of our listeners on here, and how difficult is it to become a proficient user and be able to interpret this data? Because it can look very intimidating at first.
Sure. Yeah. Well, especially when the guy fumbles through the demo. we love live demo land. No, but in all honesty, so what we do is we connect all these different data streams, and then we'll push these sort of template views, right? You can actually see here. Here's the version of C Prime's agile maturity level, right? That we've worked together to say, here are the core 4 that we're going to start at with agile maturity level 1 that we just want to get our arms around. And that's this is transparent to a user needing to really do anything. Now, all of the ability to edit, tune it, turn around, really quick answers is all at your fingertips here, right? And that's where, we'll have a tutorial or a video that can show you all the advanced operations. But in terms of getting quick access to answers on something like Team Flow is as much as connect the data, download, basically not download, but analyze all that information. And in a day, you can have this entire Team Flow board at your fingertips without really needing to do anything. And that's a little bit of magic in a day and age where, people can wait a month for a data pull, a second data pull, an analyst to run things through, right? Somebody build a presentation or a deck based on it and then go from there.
This is an absolute game changer. If we had this years and years ago, I think our ability to move the needle with clients would have been much different. So going from months and months to days, if not even hours, is incredible.
Yeah. And in terms of driving this forward, right, and thinking about how do teams implement, what do you think in terms of what are potential next steps on the journey? So if we're thinking about early stages, it's what are and Matt, I think you said it perfectly, what are the 3 or 4 things we have to pay attention to, right? And how do we start to address perhaps maybe velocity and load and what the team is working on, right? What do we see as the next phases as we're starting to, solve problem 1 and now get insight into the next set of challenges that are maybe a couple layers deeper?
I'll just jump out and say one of the really key things that we'll do is if kind of base operations, right, sort of water lines, if you will, on flow and efficiency. And because so many people are being pressed on that answer right now, do we have an answer for our level of efficiency? The whether or not it's good, set that part aside. Do you actually have an answer? Okay, cool. You do have an answer. Based on that, what things do we need to work on? Do we need to focus on? Often it comes back to the business, right? This key kind of really, really important value stream concept would be, how focused are we on delivering value and how do we optimize delivering value? And value equals product in the hands of customers and stakeholders, right? And so that's where getting into how effective we are on a delivery basis is critical, right? And you can see here, this is something that we even at Allstacks, and this is in our sandbox with you guys at C Prime, but we've really focused on epic level delivery, and you can see the fruit of that over the last 6 months ish, and that's intentional. We want everything to be associated with our initiatives that are on our roadmap. We don't want to have be spread too thin on the different deliverables, the different, types of things that we might put out there in the world. We want to just have a few, and we want to be ramping the speed of delivery, smaller increments, all that. If you don't even know where you stand here, it is really hard to go into the next step, which would be, oh, what is the difference between my teams? Do I understand the nature of, this is pancakes and waffles, two of our teams, right? Like, do I understand the nature of my teams? How do I optimize within my different teams? Well, if you don't have the first answer, you can't go to the second thing, right? Logical progression. The cool thing here with Allstacks, you're not going to run in any walls. If you want more data, you click in, you go to the derivative view of that, you build that view, you then work on driving that number up, and then you see it happening in real time. And I'll plug again the concept of those risks, where we can alert on custom thresholds, things that are out of bounds, out of range, that'll then tell you, oh, we need to focus on this. We need to bring this back in range. We need to get this underneath our sort of benchmark or waterline, so that we don't boost our cycle times, really lag on delivery, et cetera.
What comes to mind is, it goes back to the agile maturity numbers. How can we use that data to just continuously move the needle? And, core to agile is continuous improvement. Another question that comes to mind is, can we measure efficiency, quality, effectiveness of our technical practices?
Yeah. So for sure, technical practices on efficiency, a lot can go into the behavior between opening up commit, getting started, getting that traffic through pull requests. Are we reviewing pull requests quickly? Are we getting them merged? And then also, how are we doing on that quality side of things? And let me pull up. So here is that view of, percent of bug versus everything else, right? And being able to answer this super quickly and then dive into the data and understand the nature of those bugs, their priority, right? You can, as simple as editing this and changing a visualization, you can move through this data to zoom in on just bugs, understand where they're coming from, their relative priority, where they escaped, were they not, right? This is using data that already exists in your systems that we're tying it together into your teams to make it possible to look at. And for you guys and for the leaders in these software orgs, you're gonna get asked that question, right? You're gonna get asked hey, it seems like from a quality perspective, we're degrading or we're improving. Can you show that? You should absolutely be able to show that and show it fast.
So maybe as a final thought before we jump into Q&A, because I know we've got a few questions we want to get answered. It sounds like Flow as a vehicle to help us start to identify and understand where we have inefficiencies, right? We can start to think about different levels, right? What's the first thing that we're going to tackle? And then once we have that under control, it lets us get to the next level of granularity and the next level and the next level. However, in this new environment where teams are trying to do more with less, any steps we can take to start to push out efficiencies are going to add a ton of value, right? Fixing the first level problems are going to add a ton of value on that journey towards getting to that second, third, fourth, fifth level of maturity. Any final thoughts before we turn it over to questions? Want to open the floor to both of you first.
From my perspective, being more of a technical consultant, the first thing I think is automations. Look at metrics related to the mundane, the redundant tasks, the error-prone tasks that we can automate. And if we can reduce those, and we can essentially instantaneously see the results of those automations with the Allstacks metrics, we can then put our high-skilled, high-value employees on the work that matters, which is delivering value.
I think let's hit the questions.
So we might have touched on this one that came in earlier. Matt had asked that to Adam. I don't know if you want to touch on that again, maybe.
Yeah.
Questions around authentication.
Yeah. To recap there, these are 15 to 30 minute type setups in a day, a day or two, depending on your schedule, you're able to see sort of the fully realized view of the product suite. You can come in and be looking at your team flow dashboard one business day after connecting the data. And then from there, the really important thing is, right, this is living. And as you discover a problem, you are given that sort of ability to derive the answer and then dive in to find your next biggest problem and to validate your next biggest problem. I think that's one of the more important like answers that we're providing is, well, am I right about what is on fire, or do I just suspect something? So that you can act, thoughtfully toward that.
And what about benchmarking?
Yeah.
So everyone struggles with this of what's my starting point? Where am I starting from? And so I think it's probably an important topic to cover as you're now able to hit that data from these various different systems. What does benchmarking look like? And is it going to take me 6 months to get there?
Yeah, for sure. So another thing that we do have is an industry benchmarks page. It's open to the public. We'll make it available to everyone as well, and link to it. And we also have those built into the app. So for a bunch of the core metrics and kind of key value stream items, there is that concept of across our population data. Where do you stack up, right? And that's something that senior executives really love to have, because so often these people are just they're trying to get a gauge for where they stand, and you need to get a gauge relative to yourself. Am I getting better? Am I getting worse? And am I clear about that? And then it's really nice to say, okay, I'm kind of in range, right? Everyone would love to say they're top decile. But that's obviously not possible. So at the very least, where do you stack up against sort of the average operations out there across the data that's available?
Yeah, I don't think the math works that way for everyone to be killing it.
Yeah.
Statistically speaking. Next question that we have is around value stream identification, which I actually think is where a lot of companies are trying to figure out how to get started. How do we know what our value streams are? Where are we spending our time and energy? And I know that value stream identification is often something that we support our customers with. So I'll kick that over to you, Matt. Typically, how do we approach just the first step around value stream identification?
Yeah, so there's always a number of ways to do it, but what we find to be the most effective is a series of workshops. There's nothing better than just getting the people with the knowledge in a room to put their thoughts and ideas up on the wall and collaborate there and zero in. All right, that looks like a good value stream. Now let's go test it. Is that in fact the value stream? And we just iterate over that as fast as the clients can handle those iterations.
Yeah, and I guess a plug here would be, you can handle those iterations really fast if you have clear data right at your fingertips that is showing you daily how changes in your operations, new approaches are impacting your results, right? And that's an exciting thing to see play out over and over in our customers and our partners. A plug really from me for all of the sales leaders and product marketers and marketing executives who are kind of clamoring for really important releases that they're having a hard time really understanding, like, is this going to come when I'm told it's going to come? And for the people trying to answer those questions, because the questions are getting louder and more aggressive in this day and age, using this type of approach to obtain those answers will make you better, more reliable, more productive. You'll be working on the right things and know what to expect and be setting expectations in a way that's going to help your business. And so we're really enjoying the dialogue that we're having with our customers and partners on that front right now.
And I feel like the statement has changed from fail fast to learn fast, because now we can actually learn from the data. So are we truly ever failing? No, we're learning, we're adapting, and we're moving on.
One more question we have from Rachel. What level of admin experience do we need? Master's in data science. Help us understand what this looks like to support Allstacks and
Yeah,
effectively get value.
our power users are typically people who are a first line manager up to VP in a software organization that is anywhere from 50 people across the technology world up to 10,000, right? And often it's the actual practitioners, the people who are sometimes writing code, but often really coordinating, managing, aligning the teams who are shipping deliveries, for the business. And often it's a couple office hours, type moments to learn some of the specialties, that are available to you in the app. But certainly no advanced degrees required. And the cool thing is we're building for and interacting with people who build software, and that's an amazing thing to get to do from my perspective, right? It's just really rewarding, but also the get it factor is just very high.
I think that might be all for our backlog of questions. I think on behalf of both C Prime, Allstacks, Adam, Matt, myself, just want to thank everyone for joining the live version. For anybody who might be watching this at some point in the future in a recording, thank you for watching that version as well. If you have any more questions, please feel free to visit our website. We're about to, I think, show a link on screen. But again, thanks so much for attending. Really appreciated it, and look forward to chatting with you soon about how to increase your flow.
Hey, and also for people in the Atlassian ecosystem who are going to be out at Teams, look for the C Prime and Allstacks folks out there. Send us a message. Love to talk to you.
Awesome plug. I think we will all be there and would love to meet you in person.
Thanks, everybody.